And we are live. The live broadcast has started.
The live broadcast has started. Hello, Facebook family. It's a Monday. And as always, I'm sitting at my kitchen table. It is so cozy sitting here and coming to y'all every Monday, bringing you Pop Barnes Health or Community Tips for the week. And we come every week, 52 weeks out of the year, bringing you health information so that you live a long, healthy quality of life with your loved ones, and community information like we're going to give today, some really good information as far as the community is concerned. And as always, I have my integrative health partners, New Horizons Community Health and Tree of Life Healthcare with Dr. Nikita Pitts, and our special guest that I'm going to have Susan introduce in just a minute. But first, we have a message from a very, very, very special person that we love. And Dr. Pitts, we're going to sing happy birthday to Andrea. Today's her birthday. 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday
to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Andrea. Happy birthday to you, and many more. Ms. Andrea Wish is the Chief Executive Officer, as everyone knows, of New Horizons Community Health. She's taken off for her birthday today, rightfully so. And I'm going to have Ms. Susan. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Dr. Nikita Pitts, representing Tree of Life Healthcare, and Dr. Pitts, and you can introduce Susan, and Susan can introduce our special guest, who is her twin. They will put you under the jail, Susan, if you ever say, no, that's not my daughter. The judge will say, life with no probation, no parole. Dr. Pitts, would you say something to our Facebook audience as you do every week?
Yeah. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Nikita Pitts. I'm here sitting in for Dr. Lowell Clyett from Tree of Life Healthcare. We offer low-cost health coverage, or rather health services, to people in the community who may be underinsured, and or let's say for people coming back in, re-entering society for various reasons. And so we're located at 1968 North Avenue, right across from the Columbus Research Institute and some Piedmont Hospital parking lot. So feel free to give us a call, 706-225-0355, to inquire about our services. Now I'll turn it over to Susan.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. Good morning, everybody. Susan Gallagher with New Horizons Behavioral Healthcare. We are your Tier 1 provider of core outpatient mental health services, 8 counties in West Central Georgia. We have offices located throughout our 8-county service area. Our main office is at 2100 Comer Avenue. Our intake appointment line number is 706-596-5500. And during the COVID pandemic, we are offering telehealth, telemedicine services, so you can receive your behavioral health treatment from the comfort of your phone, your laptop, your PC. Be sure to give us a call, 706-596-5500. It's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to stay that way. And New Horizons is here to help.
Susan, that's a good saying. I think that it would be good, particularly because we're still through this pandemic, for you to mention that on each show. I think it's really something that people need to, our viewing audience needs to focus in on, because all of us are not feeling okay. Things are not normal, and people need to know. Don't obsess over it. Things are not normal now.
Right.
But as you say, finish this sentence. It's okay not to feel. Go ahead, you finish. I'm going to let you do your own.
It's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to stay that way.
That is exactly right. Now, before you introduce our very, 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 very special guest, I have a poem. I'm a poet, I think, and don't know it. It was 2 days before Christmas, and all through the house, all the Barneses were asleep. All the Barneses were asleep, including the mouse. When walking up the driveway, with who would appear is Santa's helper, although she had no reindeer. She placed the gift next to our door, walked down the driveway, and came back like before. She grabbed the gift, placed it behind a bush out of sight, and as she drove off, she says, "I am Andrea, Santa's elf. Have a Merry Christmas and good night." That was Andrea. She brought me a Christmas gift. And I said, my wife said, "Please, baby, don't," because I read it to her. She said, "Baby, please, you're not a poet. Please don't read that off there." I said, "I'm going to gamble and I'm just going to do it." So now that I've done that, and Andrea, thank you. The first thing that my wife and my daughter said, "Dad, that bag of yours is funky looking." And so we're so glad that she saw that and got you a nice looking bag that you can carry around. So Andrea, love you. Thank you so very much. And you enjoy your special day today, your birthday. You have earned it. And I always tell our Facebook audience that the two organizations, New Horizons Behavioral Health and Tree of Life Healthcare, are two organizations that I chose to partner with. Why? Because they say the same mindset that I have, that people need to have access to good quality behavior and physical health. And a lot of times, some of the organizations, they think about the dollar, but these organizations are open-hearted. They serve everyone. And so these two organizations that are helping us in the community, we need to help them. And there's a lot of ways that you can help them. There's volunteering, because when you volunteer, it saves those dollars that they need to have for hiring. But at the same time, any donation that you, from $1 makes 10, $10 makes 20, $20 makes 200. They need help helping us in the community. And I can always call on them when someone doesn't have any money or they're in need. I can always call on those two organizations to help. And for me, it's been a huge blessing, and a blessing for them whenever God's goodness can shine through you. You can be a conduit, whether you're an individual or whether your organization is a blessing for you. And so now, I know you all think that the dynamic duo of Batman and Robin. No, it is Susan and her daughter Grace. So Susan, would you introduce this fantastic daughter of yours about
I am so pleased, Facebook friends and family, to introduce my daughter, Grace Nagel. Grace Nagel is a product of Columbus, Georgia. She was born in San Antonio, Texas, but raised here in Columbus, Georgia. She's a graduate of Columbus High School and went off to school. She 2 years at Florida State, 2 years at Georgetown, and got her master's degree at Georgia Tech. And after graduating with her master's degree, she decided to get some hands-on international work experience and joined the Peace Corps. And that's what she's here to talk to you about. Grace, you want to say hello to everybody?
Hello, Facebook. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm so thrilled to be here with you, Pops, and you, Dr. Pitts, and of course, my mama. So yeah, I'm so excited. Peace Corps has been a huge part of my life, and I think it's something that more people should be aware of, the work that we do. It's your taxpayer dollars that fund the work that the Peace Corps does in over 60 countries around the globe. So I'm so thrilled to share my experience with you.
Okay, Grace, you're in the driver's seat. Let everybody know what your Peace Corps experience was like.
I'm pulling up my PowerPoint presentation, and let's see. Y'all let me know when it's fully loaded. There we go. So, all right. So as I was introduced, my name is Grace Nagel. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Senegal in West Africa from 2016 to 2019. I worked in the community economic development sector, which we'll talk about a little bit more briefly, but just wanted to share my experience, particularly concerning health projects. And let's get ready to rock and roll.
That's it. That's you. Sound just like your mom.
So the first question is, why join the Peace Corps? And I think everyone has their own motivations for joining the Peace Corps. For me, there are a lot of reasons. The first is I've always been fascinated by different languages and different cultures, and I have a desire to travel and see the world. I was also raised by a mom who, I got to give her credit since she's on live with me now, who really taught me about social justice and you know, the importance of doing good works and trying to lead by example in the community. And I studied international affairs. My undergraduate degree, I was a French minor and an Arabic major, and I wanted to be able to put those skills to good use. And then I also come from a military family, and you know, service to our country, representing our country is really important, and something that I think when you grow up in a military town like Columbus or Fort Benning, is something that's very deeply instilled inside of you. And the Peace Corps was an opportunity for me to combine all of those passions into service. And if any of those things resonate for you, that might be something to look at as an opportunity to develop yourself for sure. So I want to give a little bit of an introduction to Senegal. Senegal is a country in West Africa. You can see it right here in green. It borders the Atlantic Ocean, and it's just a really, really cool place. There's about 14 million people that live in the country. The capital is Dakar, and there are over 26 different ethnic groups and languages represented in this country. That's about the size of Wyoming. So if you can imagine all sorts of different people and all sorts of different cultures and landscapes in that small area, it's really fascinating. About 92% of the country.
Susan, Grace, let me stop. Can you all see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Now I'm seeing it. Okay, good. Sorry about that.
No, you're all right. Thank you for letting me know. The country is about 92% Muslim and about 5% Christian. And the GDP, it really varies, but they usually have about $2,700 per person per year. One thing that is really fascinating about Senegal compared to many other African countries is there's not been a bloody coup d'etat. There's not been a war fought for independence, and it's remarkably a very peaceful country. So much so, I'd love to share this tidbit. The first elected African president of Senegal, his name was Léopold Sédar Senghor, and he was a double minority. He was a Catholic Serer, and he was elected by a Muslim and Wolof majority country to be their first president, which I think is fascinating. It's very rare that you would find that. Yeah. So, you know, that would be like, I can't even imagine over here, but just that's the kind of place that Senegal is, one that is very diverse, very welcoming, and very hospitable. And because it's been so stable, it's been a great place for the Peace Corps to do a lot of legwork in the area. So the Peace Corps was founded by President John F. Kennedy by executive order in 1961, and there's 3 different goals, and these are the goals of Peace Corps worldwide. So no matter where you go as a volunteer, when you are sworn in, you swear to defend the Constitution, but then you also swear to uphold these missions and these goals. So the Peace Corps mission is to promote world peace and friendship by fulfilling 3 goals. 1, to help the people of interested countries in meeting their need for trained men and women. 2, to help promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served. And 3, to help promote a better understanding of other peoples on the part of Americans. Now, if you look at this really closely, only one of these 3 goals is actually about doing work-related projects. The other 2 are about cultural exchange, awareness, and education. So the big chunk of my work would be to be an example of what an American person is like for a community who might never actually meet an American in real life. And then conversely, the mission for the rest of my life is to share my experience in Senegal and about Senegalese culture with Americans for as long as I'm around, and they will let me talk about it. So, you know, I think it's a beautiful set of goals where, yes, we are doing a lot of the work, hands on the ground development work, but more important than that is we're sharing culture and we're learning more about our global neighbors and partners all across the world. So when volunteers join the Peace Corps, they serve for 27 months, and it typically will look something like this on their volunteer life cycle. The first 3 months are going to be for staging and pre-service training. They fly you to DC and you get briefed for about 24 hours, and then before you know it, you're on a plane going somewhere you've never been before. And the first 3 months are you just really sitting down, learning language, learning cultural faux pas, and understanding a little bit more of the country of why you're there. And then you.
Hey, Grace, let me interject. Are you at that slide? Have you forwarded the slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you see it, Susan and
Yeah.
Dr. Pitts?
We can see it, yeah.
So it's just me. Okay, no problem. As long as y'all are seeing it, it's just my limitation as far as the computer is concerned. Go ahead, Grace.
Yeah.
This is really educational.
So yeah, you spend the first 3 months in your country getting trained. It's literally like from 7 in the morning until 6 o'clock at night, where you're learning language, you're learning basics, and you have to pass a language exam in order to qualify to be sworn in as a volunteer. Now, if you are sworn in, then they take you and drop you off at your new home for the next 2 years, and you spend the first 3 months doing community integration work. Because first of all, you don't really speak the language all that well. But second of all, you don't have the connections in the community just yet to do any meaningful work.
Right.
So you have to take the
Right.
time to go around, walk around your neighborhood, meet with people, talk with them, have tea, have lunch, go to their weddings, go to their funerals and baptisms. And you have to make yourself known as somebody other than, that American person over there. You have to become
Right.
integrated in the community to build a level of trust for them to come out and work on projects together. Now, after that first 3 months of integration is done, you'll go into what we call in-service training. And this is like a 2-week-long boot camp for your particular sector work. So for instance, my sector was community economic development, and we would do a 2-week-long boot camp about teaching people basics of accounting or better business practices, learning the entrepreneurship training program that Peace Corps has developed. So we do a lot of that, and by the time that we're done, we're ready to hit the ground running in our communities to get the training out to people. You spend the next 2 years doing various projects, which may or may not succeed. Hopefully they will. And then before you know it, you're wrapping up your projects and it's time to come home, and you're preparing your site for your replacement, who will come by and hopefully carry the torch that you've started in your community. So if you're like me,
Great.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Grace, if I can interject, I see that they really do, for anyone who might have somewhat skepticism about their availability or if they're prepared, they do put you through quite a rigorous training. Yeah. where you're really confident enough to really go out in the community. And one thing that I do like about this here, being military and going into other countries like your mom and other veterans have done, it is a learning experience to go in to absorb
Absolutely.
Other cultures. And you can actually see that you're doing a really good job when the people really welcome you and you really feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
But you got to actually step forward yourself and really go to them. And so this is really for the average person of all ages. It's really a good life experience. It's a good learning experience for individuals.
I think you touched on a bunch of really good points. So I think, first of all, most Peace Corps posts, with the exception of some agricultural posts, require a college degree. So they do want to make sure that they're sending people who have a certain level of educational attainment to be able to, do some of the work that we're doing. But you're right, being able to be challenged by a new culture and being welcomed by people in a new culture, that's how you know that you've succeeded.
Right.
I think there's a saying that's really common in Peace Corps that to serve in the Peace Corps is to plant a tree in whose shade you will never sit. Meaning that
that's awesome.
Yeah, so hopefully the work that we do will plant a seed that will really fruit for years and years to come. And if I can make a difference simply by getting people to know an American, because I'm sure Americans are sick of American news. You can imagine how other people around the world must be sick of American news.
Exactly.
And they get to see
Exactly.
someone who, you know, is a real person and who can laugh and joke with them and, you know,
Right.
learn a little bit more about their daily life. Oh, and I didn't mention, when you're doing this, you live with a host family. So, you know, when you're doing all
Oh,
these projects, you don't live on your own. Now, some posts are different where you do get to live on your own, but at least for the first 6 months, you live with a host family and, you know, you share your daily activities with them. You know,
that's
I'd get
awesome.
up with my family. You know, from the time I woke up to when I went to sleep, I was speaking in Wolof and helping, you know, with chores and with cooking and running errands and, you know, babysitting kids and stuff. So, you know, you're trying to live as much like your community does as possible. And living with a host family is the best way to do that, as well as make your language really good. Nothing teaches you a
Sure.
foreign language like being yelled at constantly until you understand. So, but that's the basic
That's
your
funny.
life cycle, 27 months. And if you're like me, you have the option to renew either in your site or at a position in the Capitol. And I did an extra year. So I served for close for 40 months, with my third year being in the capital of Dakar, which was another experience entirely. But 27 months, and it's the toughest job you'll ever love, is what they say. So
But I can imagine just how rewarding something like that is, because it is the epitome
it really,
of service. You're there actually, and you're doing two things. What is so vitally important is that you're giving others a hands-on view of what an American is like, and it's awesome, awesome as far as public relations is concerned.
and pennies on the dollar in terms of investment. You know, I can tell you, my Peace Corps stipend from the government was not very high. So you're living, the cost that you get for sending volunteers out, and I think the long-term rewards that we get as Americans, it's brainless. You know, it's honestly a great program and one that continually receives bipartisan support. But I want to talk a little bit
Right.
more about what Peace Corps Senegal does. So I mentioned sectors before, and there's 6 global sectors in Peace Corps. There's agriculture, agroforestry, community health, economic development, education, and youth and development. And Senegal only has 4 sectors, so we have everything except youth and development and education. But you would have volunteers who would be, you know, an agroforestry volunteer, or like me, a community economic development volunteer. And all of these different volunteers work under the same common project goal, because we know that we can't say, you know, economic development does not exist in a vacuum separate from community health, which doesn't, you know, exist in a vacuum away from agriculture. All of these things are deeply interconnected and intertwined. But certain volunteers might have certain skill sets. For instance, if you have a nursing background or any kind of public health background, you would best be served as a community health volunteer instead of an agroforestry volunteer. But overall,
Sure.
we work with a local counterpart. So someone in the community who is able to help us identify key players and stakeholders for the projects that we do, as well as to help make sure that they are long-term sustainable goals and also relevant to the needs of the community. So we're very much there to do what the community asks of us to do, instead of us, you know, coming in with our own framework. All of these frameworks and sectors are deliberately agreed upon between the American government and the Senegalese government. So they're identified as the top needs for volunteers in communities throughout the country. And our role primarily is, once we teach people a skill, we have to mentor them. We have to encourage them and coach them to continue on with it, and to encourage that positive behavior change that we want to see. So, you know, it's easy enough to teach someone about making soap, but the hard thing is to meet with them again to mentor their progress and help them find ways that they can improve in 2 years' time. So that's what we're here for. Is we're coaches, we're mentors, and we're helping people to expand the skills that they already have, is what we're here to do. So I was not a health volunteer, but I know, Pops, your health focus is really remarkable. And I did do quite a lot of health projects when I was in Senegal. And so a couple of them.
Great.
Yes, sir.
I said that's great.
Okay.
Yes, I know that's probably something that's really needed.
So there's 4 main categories of health projects in Senegal. Those are nutrition, malaria, water, sanitation and hygiene, and health advocacy. And all of these kind of come together. We'll talk a little bit more about them individually, but these are the high target areas for health work. You know, some of them are self-explanatory like malaria, but some of them are a little bit more in-depth and in focus like the health advocacy programs. So I'll go ahead and talk about some of these with you all. So the first one is going to be nutrition. So I'm not sure if anyone knows the difference between hunger and malnutrition, because there is a difference. Senegal is not.
It's a huge difference.
Yes. Senegal is not a country that suffers from hunger as much as it suffers from malnutrition. Hunger is where you don't have the calories you need to survive every day. Malnutrition, you have the calories, but it's not coming from the right sources. And in the case of Senegal, there are plenty of communities that basically subsist on rice or corn and palm oil. So we're trying to get people to incorporate more nutritious foods into their diet, and in particular for women who are pregnant or for families with children under the age of 5. If you can get to 5, you're more likely to survive, essentially, in the global health world. So if we can get kids to reach the age of 5, we can help ensure that they'll have a long life ahead of them. Some other work for nutrition would be our community gardens, because agriculture is the biggest part of the Senegalese economy. About 75% of the country is involved in agriculture in some way. So we want to help communities grow nutrient-dense foods and a variety of foods, because Senegal has a very rich cultural cuisine. I actually read somewhere that the cuisine, like traditional African cuisines, are some of the healthiest cuisines in the world. But because of a lot of the effects of colonization, and Senegal gained its independence in the 1960s, so they've only been independent for about 60 years. And they're really revamping their food systems to kind of, incorporate more of their traditional foods in there that have a lot of nutritional benefits. And we're here to help with that. The other thing is moringa cultivation. Moringa is a really, really cool tree. It's native to India, and in Wolof they call it nebadai, which means never die in English. And it thrives in places where it shouldn't. They plant it in the desert, and it grows these leaves that are so nutritious. They have more potassium than bananas, more protein than eggs, more vitamin C than oranges. And it's a very traditional food, and encouraging people to use it in new and creative ways, particularly with their kids. So we do a lot of moringa trainings and show people how to grow moringa, but not only how to grow it, how to dry it, process it, and even sell it to other people to make a little bit of money. So little things about our nutrition work, which are super powerful. The other sector is going to be malaria. So globally, there's about 212 million people who are infected with malaria every year. And of those, almost 500,000 die. Malaria is one of the oldest diseases in the world. It's mentioned in the Bible several times. And, as long as there's been humans, there's been malaria. And malaria, it's easy to prevent. What we have to do is change behaviors regarding malaria. Because its infection rate in Senegal is so common, for a lot of people, they're like, it's almost like catching the flu or something for them. Where we need to tell people the importance of sleeping under a mosquito net every night, how to repair mosquito nets, and then more importantly, how to, the importance of early care seeking when you have the symptoms of malaria. Because a lot of the signs for malaria are just like that of the flu or a stomach bug. So it's hard to tell if you might have malaria or not. And it's very easily cured if you catch it early on, which is why we encourage people, if you have any of the signs of malaria, that they need to go to a health post right away to get treatment. There was actually back in the early 2000s a Peace Corps volunteer in the southeast region of Kedugu who started a volunteer health worker initiative for malaria, where she trained local volunteers to go and conduct malaria education trainings. And it was so successful, the Senegalese government implemented it nationwide, and it's called Pekidom Plus. And it's something that we still do to this day, of training volunteer health workers to go into communities, particularly very rural communities, and do malaria outreach work, as well as give out malaria medications. So very, very powerful stuff. The third health activity is going to be water, sanitation, and hygiene. This is commonly referred to as WASH in the development world. And, I think a lot of us in America take running water for granted. And I can tell you, after 3 years of having to take a bucket bath, I don't take water for granted anymore. But access to running water, to clean running water, the lack of access to that is still one of the leading causes of the spread of disease today. Could you imagine trying to fight off COVID-19 if you don't have water to wash your hands? I mean, that's a huge problem.
That's all. Yeah.
And even before COVID, diseases like cholera, dysentery, these are things that kill children under the age of 5 and can be prevented by hand washing and adequate latrines and other plumbing issues. Now, some of those are going to be far beyond the scope of what one volunteer in a village can do, but we can work with communities to help train them on the importance of hand washing, and also find creative solutions to problems that come about from a lack of plumbing. So one thing that we might do, and I've done it with several health volunteers, we would do a training on the importance of hand washing. We would make soap, which was my expertise, and then we would create something called a tippy tap. And a tippy tap is like a something you could probably use when you're camping. It's a structure of like some branches with a jerry can full of water and a hanging bar of soap. And you can build the tippy tap in such a way as to mimic having running water, so that you can just refill the jerry can full of water and wash your hands that way. We've also had volunteers write grants to do improved pit latrine construction. A friend of mine actually wrote a huge grant. It was over $10,000 to construct all new latrines in the elementary school in her village, and wildly successful. So many children, girls in particular, might miss school because they can't use the bathroom at school. They'd have to go all the way home or go out and use the restroom in public outside. And that's not safe. It's not hygienic. And that will surely change the lives of the children to, have proper working latrines at their school.
Right.
And then the final aspect of health is health advocacy, because all of the above projects that we talked about, nutrition, malaria, and hygiene, none of that matters if we don't make it sustainable. And we have to train the young generation in all of these sustainability practices for them to become the local health leaders of tomorrow. We have to work ourselves out of a job as Peace Corps volunteers. And Senegal in particular, half of the country is under the age of 18. So it's a very, very young country. And the potential for leadership in the young generation is tremendous. So one of the things that we do is we work with community health workers. Often those are women, but these volunteer workers will go out into underserved communities, and we can help them with things like better business practices. So recording what medications they might have distributed, what supplies they have left at their post, And then even things like customer service skills. Like, how many of us in the United States have gone to a doctor or a health practice and were treated really, really rudely, and you never wanted to go there again? That happens everywhere, and we want to help make sure that we're not turning people away because they were not warmly received by their community health worker. So that's something that we would work on as well. We do a lot of work with youth as well, particularly with girls' camps. And if you're looking at the screen, that is a picture of our Gumsabop youth camp. Gumsabop means believe in yourself in Wolof. And we did a lot of sessions related to health, including menstrual health, because, sanitary products in Senegal are incredibly expensive. Most of the country lives on $1 per day, and the average cost of a pack of menstrual napkins is about $1. So you can imagine that's pretty luxurious, and families are really big. So we would train people on how to make health pad or menstrual health pads, and we would actually get girls who were so excited about them, they would go back to their home villages and have like sewing clubs of making these. So really just tremendous stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and
that's awesome.
That encourages,
that's awesome.
It encourages leadership too, and there's a lot of taboos about reproductive health in Senegal, and we're not there to challenge traditional norms. We're there to provide another perspective, and we're there to showcase the fact that knowledge is power, and knowing about your own body is power for yourself. And we have to engage men as partners. Men are, the leaders in Senegal. It's a very traditional culture. And if the man doesn't support it, the community won't do it. And we have to engage men. We invite a lot of men to our Peace Corps headquarters to do gender-based violence training. So things about like domestic abuse. We've had boys and girls youth clubs where we talk about consent and sexual relationships. I mean, really just interesting stuff. And again, we're not there to change norms. We're there to provide another perspective. But these perspectives can go a long way. If we're planting the seed that will grow into a tree, who knows what that might have an effect on in terms of gender-based violence or child abuse, child marriage, all these things that we, I think, globally would see as bad things. So we engage men, we engage leaders of churches and mosques around the country, and we're not always warmly received, and that's fine, but we do find a lot of partners, and their partnership has really been tremendous for us. And then I just want to let people know how they can get involved. So unfortunately, due to COVID-19, all of the Peace Corps posts have been suspended. All of the volunteers, all 7,000 of them or so currently operating, have been evacuated last year. But there are plans to reopen possibly as soon as January. So if you're at all interested, it does take about a year to apply and then depart for your country of service. So if you're at all interested, give it a shot. The worst thing they will tell you is no. If you're interested in learning more about what Peace Corps does, the best thing that I've encouraged people to do is type in Peace Corps volunteer blog plus the name of the country that they're interested in. And I guarantee you will pull up so many different blogs. This is a great way too. I encourage maybe parents of older children who are learning from home to get another idea, another perspective about some of the countries around the world. Reach out to a volunteer. I have on here the Peace Corps website, www.peacecorps.gov, and there's a link where you can look at different projects that you can donate to. Highly encourage people to do that. And above all, we have to take care of everyone. We are a global community, and that starts with acting locally. So if you are somebody who is looking for a way to help support people around you, start with home first and look at what needs there might be in a homeless shelter or a domestic violence program. and see what ways that you can help out with that.
Grace, I have to make a
Yes, sir.
comment. I even thought I knew all about the Peace Corps because that was started. Goodness, I was a young man when President John F. Kennedy started. But you wanted something, you really educated me. No matter what your focus is or your educational background, I can see where when you go into an area, it's a holistic approach. There are so many things that something like this here not only benefits the area that you're going to, because I can see just from what you've told, it's such holistic in so many different areas, and health, economic development, but also the volunteer. It's a cultural education in and of itself, something like that enhances. And I was sitting here the whole time that you were giving your presentation, looking at your mama's face, the pride she had on her face when you were talking about the achievement. And you are a remarkable young lady because you have a remarkable mother that laid the groundwork in you to be able to go off into an area that you had no knowledge of, to have enough courage and goodness in your heart to want to give. And that's all grounded in your parental upbringing. And so
Too kind, Pop.
I'm going to give credit where credit's at. What has Dr. Pitts, Nikita, what has really made me feel so good, Dr. Pitts, was sitting here looking at all that good information at Grace and looking at the expressions on your mama's face of pride. And let me tell you something, Grace.
And I agree. I agree. The same. I was just, kind of looking at her and just seeing, because, we're extensions of our folks.
Exactly,
and,
right.
When the house, you represent everything in that house. You represent who raised you and all of that. And so I agree. And this is my first time meeting Grace, and it's such a pleasure. That was a great presentation.
Yes.
It really was. I have to tell you, as someone, I studied medicine in Poland, and it just kind of mimics some of the experiences that you had going into this foreign land. And I think one way to put it is, our goal really should be leaving a field better than the way we found it. And with the goals of the Peace Corps, what you mentioned first about the just the cultural exchange, that's really so important. I mean, in Poland, I look different. I mean, if people would see me, you automatically knew, okay, she's not from here. And but yet, what I could possibly for them, that was something that was interesting for them, because, all right, as a medical student at the time, we can go to her, but it's more of, what am I learning about that culture? And you're so right, being there, I didn't speak the language. Thank God we had an English division, so all of the coursework was in English, but it's about just looking at the needs that are so similar to, the needs of people right here in America. And that commonality that kind of brings us all together, that no matter the differences, people still want good health care, people still want to be safe, and that goes beyond all borders. So thank you so much for this information. It's great.
One thing I wanted to put, Peace Corps isn't just for young people. Don't they have a program for retirees, Grace?
Well, there's no upper age limit to serving in the Peace Corps. Both the volunteer who came before me and the volunteer who came after me were both in their 60s. So as long as you can pass the medical exam, you're okay to go. Because it's a plurality of experience, right? My experience as an American is going to be different from all of yours, and you all have different things to contribute and different perspectives to share. And in truth, I think a lot of older volunteers do really well simply because they have that experience and time on their side. So, we had a lot of people who were able to do that. And there is another program, because 27 months is quite a long time. And, I had, no kids, no spouse, no anything, preventing me from going anywhere. So I was able to just say, bye, see you in 27 months. But there is a program that is targeted for people with a certain level of specialized experience. And the acronym is slipping from me right now. But essentially, the term posts range from 3 months to 12 months. And these would be something like if you were a nurse educator who needed to do a special, like 6-month posting for other nurse educators. So something that I obviously wouldn't be able to get trained on in a very short amount of time, but that would come from having the career experience. There's a lot for people who work with special education. So even things like sign language or any type of deaf communication, or working with Braille, or children with other special needs. So very specific postings will come up every so often that are of shorter time frame, but let you kind of have that same experience of going abroad just without doing it for the full 27 months.
And Grace, I just want to thank you because you have given an overall view of just how beneficial the Peace Corps is. And it was something that until you came on my program, in fact, your mother rightfully bragged about. You said, you need to get my daughter, she was in the Peace Corps, you need to get her. And I said, oh yeah, sure, Susan, we do. You educated me so much, but you went even into more detail now than you did on the Columbus Connection show. And I know that you've really given an overall view of just how good and beneficial the Peace Corps is. And I'm just going to say something. There are a lot of seniors now who are in what they call our twilight year. And I know that Dr. Pitts can corroborate what I'm saying. The longest living cohort is the 85 years of age and above. And it's at the age where, and I always tell seniors, the goal is to get from 75 to 85. And so I'm in the senior community, and there are a lot of seniors there that have a life of experience, not only education, but I'm talking about life experience, reference points, things that you can convey would be an ideal vehicle for all ages to include the senior population. And so, Grace, let me tell you something. I share your mother's pride in you, a young person to leave out, but you want to know something? I'm just going to be totally honest, and I know she's turning red right now because she's feeling uncomfortable. But I will echo what Dr. Pitt said. I'll be honest with you. The apple does not fall far from the tree. Exactly the way your heart is a transplant of your mother's heart. And I just want to thank you for sharing your experience with our Facebook family. And Facebook family, I told you, this program gives you both health information, that you can live a long, and this is the key, long and high quality of life with your loved ones, and also for good community information like Grace just gave us. And so this is the holiday season, and I'd like for Dr. Pitts, for Susan, and for Grace to personally give to our Facebook audience and public view, because this is going public as well, their New Year's greeting to you. And I will start with Dr. Pitts. If you want to say something to our Facebook viewing audience to impart some New Year's information or wishes or whatever.
Well, again, thank you for the opportunity. This year has been a challenge for a lot of us, but it's just something different and new. 2019 was a challenge for some people as well, 2018. So I think, yes, this is the pandemic specifically that seemed to have affected all of us. But if we think about it, every year we kind of go through something, right? I think collectively this has been a problem for everyone and has affected us on so many levels, okay? But if I could give any type of well wishes or some type of inspiration, it would just be to remember the fact that we are still here, and the over 200,000 people who are not, just due to the pandemic alone. But let's also remember those who died in car accidents, from heart attacks or strokes. I mean, there's always something.
Sure.
And life, it's in like, years and in cycles. And what cycles do, they tend to repeat. And so, we tend to kind of go through things all over again, maybe different circumstances, but there's always going to be something. Someone's always going to be in need of a job or food and things like that. And so, it carries over, but just because it carries over doesn't mean we have to still kind of stay there. The social distancing is one thing that we definitely practice and should and continue, and we will continue to do that. But the social isolation, conversely, is what we want to combat. And, as Susan stated earlier, in terms of not being okay, is correct. But there's a difference between social distancing and social isolation.
Exactly.
And we have to keep that, or to be mindful of that. And that means not just for ourselves, but for other people, to check on other folks. We're not in this alone. It's a collective effort. And so we need to do our part in making certain that we not only keep ourselves in check, but to check on others. We're community, and community means we outreach. And, as the message of our Creator, that's the goal. Leaving a field better than we found it, as, we saw with Grace's work. We should take that with us everywhere, and even every day. We don't have to go to Senegal or Poland or wherever else, but right here in our communities, leaving it better than how we found it.
Exactly.
And that means just simply going across the street to someone, and if there's a need, to try and help them in whatever way we can. And so we end this year struggling and in a challenge, but there is next year in a couple of days, and we still take those challenges, but it's what we do with it. And I just thank God that we have the opportunity. We are still here.
Exactly.
And because we are still here, that means there's still work for us to do. So again, Happy New Year to everyone.
And Susan,
thank you.
The lady with the glasses.
The lady with the glasses, the blue glasses.
That's exactly.
Well, my wish for Facebook friends and family for 2021 is that we realize, like Dr. Pitt said, we're still here, so the work must continue. I wish everybody, we make these New Year's resolutions. I'd like us to focus on a New Year's revolution and take the focus away from ourselves and realize that the best way to make yourself feel better is by helping and doing for others.
Yes.
So have a New Year's revolution and put the focus on others.
That's awesome, Susan. That's awesome. And for Grace?
My wish, I'm going to share a very short poem. So open with a poem like you, Pops, and I'm going to close with a poem. And it's one of my favorite poems by Emily Dickinson that I think is something that we should carry through with us throughout the whole year. If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin unto his nest again, I shall not live in vain.
Oh, that is awesome. Boy, I'm telling you, I'm just so blessed to have individuals like y'all on Facebook to impart a message. And what I would like to say is this here. I learned a long time ago from my grandmother. My grandmother was a very strong religious person. And what she used to always say is that instead of worrying, we need to stretch out in the goodness and the grace of the Lord and stop trying to do everything ourselves, but to know that no matter what faith you belong to, if you believe in a supreme being who is omnipotent, to know, to trust that supreme being with loving you enough to do the best thing for you. And like a baby stretches out in his or her mother's arms with no fear, that's what we need to do. Trust in the Almighty who loves us all, created us, has the best interest for us. Know that we are limited and so we can only control but so much. But that the Supreme Being is omnipotent, all-knowing, all-caring, and here's the best thing, all-loving. And so I will say to our Facebook audience, the one thing that you can control is to always be good and kind to yourself because God loves you. Andrea, we miss you. We miss you. Happy birthday
Happy
to
birthday, Miss
you.
Winston.
Happy New Year to everyone. God bless you all, and we will be seeing you all next Monday, same time, same Facebook station. God bless you all.
Happy New
Bye-bye.
Year, your Facebook family.
Happy New Year.
Here.